Hello, I'm with Alan Flower today. Alan's with HCLTech. Alan, tell us a little bit about what you're doing at the moment and what your role is.
I'm joining you today from our London AI lab. You're aware that we've got a kind of a global network of 6 of these labs. We just seem to get busier and busier with every month that passes, David. Now my role in terms of leading our global AI labs is really interesting, right? Because the role of our labs is to help our clients convert their vision into reality and, of course, to accelerate their journey, hopefully give them good advice and guidance, provide deep technical engineering kind of acceleration. But the really interesting thing, I think, in terms of how my role has changed, David, in the course of this year, clearly, and you've seen a lot of this, right? All of our clients stopped the experimentation quite some time ago, right? And we saw, I think, last year, that transition from POC into production. And you and I have spoke many times, of course, about some really good examples of where, we're doing genuine, what we would call value stream transformation with modern AI. And now, of course, I think 2 significant things have changed for us this year. The first thing is it's been really surprising at the number of senior business executives, chief executives, who are coming through these AI labs with a vision to re-engineer their business around modern AI. That's one distinct, I think, trend we can certainly touch upon. But the other trend, which kind of relates to this, is what I would call the utter dominance of agentic within these conversations. And I'm sure you and I can have an interesting conversation about what agentic genuinely means, of course, right? But it's really interesting. Senior executives are using or talking about themes and topics like the hybrid workforce. Chief executives are talking about this kind of the role of a digital employee going forwards. I'm sure you've got examples. We've got clients where these digital employees are now in the corporate directory, right? They're alive and they're working, right? And they're being given real work to do. So I just think, clearly things continue to move rapidly. Client confidence clearly just seems to increase every day. But I just find it really interesting to observe how many things now are going into production and how clients are preparing their organization for that emergence, right?
And I think these are the real challenges, aren't they? I've long said that it's never been easier to turn a business idea, a dream, into reality. And I think that's what you're seeing with your CEOs. They're going, oh, hang on a minute, what happens when the ease with which I can make this productivity gain or this new way of doing something or this thing I imagined has exponentially changed. I can now do these things a hell of a lot easier. And we see it in the world of startups where kids are dropping out of really great roles to just go and do something because they believe they can do it faster and cheaper and easier outside of organizations than they can in. And I think this is one of the great challenges and maybe where you're able to demonstrate to us where you're helping people. There is this belief that you can auto-magically transform what you're doing. And then there's the reality check, isn't there, with agentic every time of, but have you got the context data to make that work in your enterprise? What's the journey like and where are the examples, Alan, of people that hit those walls and break through them?
Yes, that's a really good question, actually, right? You ask about the journey, and I really like your reference to a startup, right? In terms of they've got less concerns, right? They don't really have an existing estate to worry about, right? With real businesses or rather established businesses, it's a little bit more challenging, right? I think the journey that we've seen, and we've seen this in so many different kind of industries and across our entire client base, I think in HCLTech, David, is the journey doesn't really happen overnight. And really what we've seen, and I've certainly seen this in our labs, maybe the relationship starts with a senior executive really just asking for some advice and guidance. I've got this vision, right? I've got this vision. Can it really be made real? And then, of course, as clients have put a toe in the water, so to speak, Maybe they've asked us to build like an MVP, a minimal viable product. We've done a lot of those GenAI MVPs over the last 2 or 3 years. And I think really what's happened, right, is as these things have now gone into production, confidence continues to grow. And as that confidence has grown, clients are coming back. And now the next stage seems to be this agentic step. And I'll give you an example of this, because you did ask, I think, for an example. And, one of our more successful, I think, engagements is in the realm of healthcare. I think we've spoken in the past about our AI clinical advisor. Now, the really interesting thing, right? This is a solution that is transforming the experience not just of patients, but of clinicians too. And as we've deployed this AI clinical advisor into the US healthcare system, the feedback from doctors and clinicians has been outstanding, David, right? They talk in terms of, I no longer feel that I'm burning out. I get more time for a quality engagement with the patient. And as you know, our AI clinical advisor has been giving clinicians access to the latest medical research and kind of helping them make better treatment decisions. But here's the really interesting thing. As this now rolls out to 10,000 clinicians in the US, the positive feedback from the end user, your doctor, has really resulted in these clinicians now saying, where else can this kind of help me, right? As an example, many clinicians struggle with making accurate medical notes. Many clinicians struggle with writing prescriptions and ensuring, for example, that medicines arrive at the right time to be served to the patient. And of course, many clinicians just really struggle with finding the time to update medical records. And this is a really good example of where we are now deploying genuine agentic capability into the healthcare domain. So we have now deployed agents that order medicines from the pharmacy, right? You give it an instruction, it autonomously goes away, and it will make sure those medicines are not just ordered, but they actually turn up. We have agents now that are updating medical records on behalf of the clinician. We also have agents now that are writing the treatment plan for the patient. But these agents could be fully autonomous. But where we are today is we are keeping the human in the loop. And these agents, they are fully autonomous, but they are saying to the clinician, I'm just about to write the following prescription. Are you happy? Will you sign this off, so to speak? So the human is still clearly in control. This is exactly what...
Alan, do you think that's still part of the learning process of humans learning to work with machines, learning to trust those machines? And perhaps there's a point a little further down the line where you simply set the goal and you expect it to fulfill it. And you're more... We started talking about human at the helm rather than human in the loop. So you're able to set those goals, but it requires the human imagination to set the thing in chain in the first place. This is, I think, speaks to how organizationally the impact might play out. Because at the moment, there's a risk of where you can't effectively have straight-through processing of the process, you still requiring quite an element of human labor and the human ownership of that process. How far away do you think we might be from shifting even those responsibilities away?
I think we're a lot closer than many people imagine, right? I think you've touched on a really good topic there in terms of what I would call trust and culture, all right? Am I now prepared to trust my AI agent to act on my behalf fully, all right? And I think as clients get more exposure and more experience, that trust is growing, quite rapidly. And I think, as with many of these things, David, we see the first signs of this, for example, in the realm of software engineering, right? Everything seems to start with the role of a software engineer or people in those kind of engineering roles. And we already see ample evidence that software engineers in particular, or architects, are increasingly confident and trusting to delegate complete responsibility to some of these agentic platforms. I'm sure we've all experimented and maybe used today platforms like Codex from OpenAI, for example, right? So we already see clear evidence that software engineers are already confident with these agentic platforms, and that inevitably now spreads into the core business as well. But there is a cultural aspect to this, which I think it's easy to overlook. We now have to teach people, train them to delegate to AI. All right. It's about people becoming comfortable as managers of a hybrid team, for example. So here in HCLTech, we're obviously very advanced in this journey, but we now have to teach people who maybe they consider themselves to be individual contributors. I'm sure you know many of these people. We now have to train them to delegate to AI. We have to train them to, over time, of course, not just delegate, but maybe do performance management of agentic colleagues as well. So there's a raft of new challenges that we're all going to have to acclimatize to. But I think it's quite encouraging to see these early steps clearly lead us in the right direction.
So just before we wrap up, Alan, I'm thinking that it would be good if you could share with those good folk who will be consuming this video cast some tips you might have picked up from deploying at scale with genuine agents into enterprises. What are the biggest learnings? What are the biggest threats? You've got folk who are doubling down now on the successes they've seen with AI. And my guess is they are going to be the folk that now really accelerate and make the markets. There is a risk of all of those who are still stuck in this world of POCs and pilots, though frankly, if you're still doing POCs, this means you believe the technology doesn't work. But it has been proven to work, so let's get on with actually using it to create value. How do you think you can help people move out of that, maybe the earlier stage, which by many accounts we're looking at 85-90% of the market is still sitting in that bucket, where 10% is going, thank you very much, we're going to head off into the future and good luck everyone else?
It's a really good point, David. I hate to use the phrase, but it's quite evident there's a two-tier approach to deploying these agentic, systems. I think we see lots of examples of enlightened leaders, maybe with a growth mindset, who have quickly latched on to the competitive advantage of leveraging this technology in a certain way, whether through efficiency gains, productivity, speed to market. There are numerous reasons why I think people are accelerating on this journey. And clearly there's a lot we can learn from the experience of these people that have been before. And, from an HCLTech perspective, I mean, it's quite remarkable, right? We've just delivered our 750th GenAI and now Agentic project within these labs. And we've learned an awful lot, I think, about what makes some of these projects successful. And just a couple of obvious observations. If you find a senior business leader with the vision, that's a really good sign, right? You've got that kind of strategic coverage in your organization. And clearly, as I've said, we see a lot of very senior business leaders now kind of lead this journey, to a certain extent. But the second observation, really, David, is a characteristic that makes it really obvious when you look at these more successful deployments. They've gone after real serious business processes. We talk about value stream transformation. They're not necessarily nibbling at the edges. They're going after those top line, although those value streams and value chains in their organization, which would make quite a significant impact on their top line. The example I gave of the healthcare provider, the efficiency gain there starts at $100 million a year. All right, we've got other clients that are looking into those multi-million-dollar kind of savings, even today, right? So they've gone after kind of top line growth. I think that's quite obvious. Another thing, clearly, and here is an open offer, of course, to any of your viewers. This is the reason I think our labs, in particular, AI labs, have been so busy and so successful, right? You can come into these labs. Here I am in the London lab, of course. Bring your vision and your kind of good idea to these labs, and we will help you make it a reality. Test it with us, and we do that very rapidly. And David, you know this, right? Modern tools and technology enable us to validate these ideas in days or a few weeks. It's not a significant investment at all. So we find a lot of clients now. Clearly, they're coming into these labs to rapidly test an idea. We can help them build a business case. One thing that we've done, actually, David, which clients are benefiting from today, we have something in an HCLTech. It's called the Agentic Impact Calculator, which we want to share with everyone. It allows you to look at a traditional business process, or let me call it a value stream today, and it predicts quite accurately what the efficiency gain of agentic AI will be. All right. So we understand the technology, we understand the cost of the technology, and we can help clients quite rapidly, not just test an idea, but build that business case to support agentic. And again, as I've said, several times, during this call, this is clearly what we are observing. People are not experimenting with what I would call edge cases. They're now, I think, sufficiently confident to go after some of those more, what I would call heavy duty processes at the heart of their organization. Another brief example, a client of ours here in Europe, they asked us to design their corporate AI architecture. Then they asked us to put into production an agent that looks after the legal domain. We've had an agent running in Europe for 6-7 months now that reviews and negotiates contracts, for example. That client came back to us last week, actually. Their instruction was really clear. We are now so confident. Can you take this agentic capability into all of our core business functions? And that's just, I think, another example of how confidence seems to have accelerated rapidly during the course of this year.
I think that's exactly the learning that I would want folk to take away, is that there is a cohort of leaders in this market who are learning to create value with agentic, with generative AI, with AI in general. And they're not running shy of it. They're now going, that's great, I'm now going to double down on it. So I think it's really important that as many companies as possible learn that lesson and take it on.
Yeah, great insights there, David. Thank you.
Alan, thank you so much for your time. Is there any final thoughts you'd like to leave us with?
Well, look, David, first, thanks for the opportunity to share our insights, with you today. I think in terms of my final thoughts, right, I would say to any of your viewers, this capability, this technology around agentic is far more consumable, far more affordable than I think many people appreciate. I think it's quite easily within reach, and that makes it very easy, I think, for people to kind of just take those early tentative steps and take this technology into the heart of their business. So I would say, don't be afraid to experiment. It's easier, more affordable, and maybe brings more impact today than you might appreciate. And certainly, an open offer from us in HCLTech. Please come and freely visit one of our AI labs. These are available in all of the convenient locations around the globe, and we would quite happily share our experience with you, but also give you the opportunity to validate the business case around your own agentic journey.
Flower, thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, thank you.